from our own Lee Wing, who's going to give us an overview of the toll credit program that Stephanie mentioned a few minutes ago. Thanks, Lee.
All right. Thank you, Chair Lathrop. I'll just take a few minutes this morning of your time. I know it's been a long day and I'm standing between you and your lunch break, so I won't take much of your time. So toll credits, we just wanted to come and talk to you briefly about these. I consider this just another financial tool. We've come and talked to you about, August redistribution, the use of that. We talked about advanced construction and how we utilize that, and also how we sell bonds. And so those are all just financial tools at our disposal. And toll credits is similar in that essence, that it is a financial tool. It's not new revenue, rather it's a tool. So what are toll credits and how do we get them? So first of all, anytime that we are spending toll revenues to build transportation infrastructure in our state, we can earn toll credits. And I'll talk to you a little bit in a couple of slides about how exactly we calculate that. But in essence, we spend toll revenues, we earn toll credits. So what do toll credits do for us? Typically speaking, in our major pots of federal funds that we get, it's required to have an 80-20 split. And what I mean by that is if we have a federally funded project, say it's $10 million, we're not actually using $10 million in federal funds. We're using $8 million in federal funds and $2 million in state funds, because there's a requirement to have a 20% non-federal match. And that comes out of our highway trust fund. So what toll credits does is says, okay, instead you can 100% federally fund that project. So all $10 million could be federally funded, but they're not giving us an additional $2 million. It's just $2 million in federal funds we already had. So we're simply choosing to use more of our own federal funds concentrated on that project instead of having an 80-20 split. So this graphic here at the bottom kind of summarizes that, but I think this graphic is a lot easier to read. Ernst & Young did a great job of putting this together. They're really good at putting things in a graphic format that make it easy to understand. So we're going to go through an example that's using the same amount of federal funds without toll credits and with toll credits. So on the left side of the screen here, this is how we would traditionally fund projects using $8 million in federal funds. So let's pretend we have $8 million in federal funds. We can spread that out over 10 $1 million projects because we're limited. We can only use 80% of the federal funds per project. So you would use $800,000 times 10 to get you to your $8 million in federal funds. And then this top red part here, I don't know if I have a little, you probably can't even see that, but this top red block here at 20% is $200,000 per project. So it's 10 projects, total of $10 million, but it's $8 million in federal funds. So if we choose to use toll credits here, we can concentrate those federal funds per project. So we would do $1 million in federal funds per project. So you're actually only using it on 8 projects because the amount of federal dollars does not change. So it's concentrated over fewer projects. So those $200,000 that we were using in state fund for match times 10 ends up being $2 million over here in this kind of red blob right here. That freed up $2 million that we can choose to spend as we like on our capital projects. We could choose to fully state fund projects 9 and 10 if we would like to, or we could use it somewhere else amongst our capital program. So in essence, this is how toll credits work, without toll credits or with the same amount of federal funds is used. Yes, sir.
So just to make sure I'm clear, does that have the effect of freeing up that $2 million that would otherwise be required to be used on these projects?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So while we're not getting more federal money, where it actually frees us up to use the $2 million on other projects where we wouldn't otherwise have been able to?
Yes, sir. So it's basically giving us flexibility. We can choose to use that $2 million concentrated over there on projects 9 and 10 and deliver them fully state funded, or we could choose to use that $2 million somewhere else. So good question. So how do we calculate how much toll credits we have? So I'm going to kind of skip and do 1, 3, and then 2, because I feel like it flows a little bit better. So every time we use toll revenues to pay to construct transportation infrastructure, we have the ability to earn toll credits. So down here at the bottom, what all of that says is basically if we're using toll revenues and state funds, however much you're using in toll revenues to build that project is how much you're earning in toll credits. So let's say you're using half toll revenues and half state funds, and that half in toll revenues is $100 million. You would earn $100 million in toll credits. So if you actually are using some federal funds, you have to give it a haircut, as we say, as far as how much toll credits you're earning. So if you, again, same example, if you're half using toll revenues and half using federal funds, you have to reduce your toll revenues by half to see how much toll credits you get. Again, if it was $100 million, you would take that down to say 50. That's how much toll credits you're earning. Now, it doesn't really work that clean in essence, because in actuality, it would be toll revenues with a mixture of federal and state funds, but that was way too much math to try to explain standing up here. So I thought that was an easier example to show you. You have to reduce it by however much percentage of federal funds are used to fund that entire project. So then jumping back up there to number 2, another requirement that we have is what's considered a maintenance of effort requirement. So we have to prove that, as we're using these toll credits, we're still using our own state dollars to use towards capital projects on our infrastructure. So they want to make sure that as we're freeing up these state funds that we were just talking about, we're still using that to build our capital projects. So what are the benefits of using toll credits? So number 1 benefit, flexibility. It gives us the opportunity to maximize the use of both our state and federal funds on our capital project. But also it allows us the ability to concentrate 100% of our federal funds on fewer projects. And I know that sounds a little bit counterintuitive. Why would we want to do that? Well, sometimes, we do know that our federal funds come in various different funding pots. They have various restrictions and requirements. And sometimes we have trouble finding projects that may be eligible for some of those pots. For instance, with IIJA-BIL, we had a new funding pot called Protect, and we're still working through the details of what the eligibilities are of those projects, still identifying those projects, getting those projects developed. And so as we are doing that, it may be a little bit more difficult to find projects to spend all this money on. And so if we found, say, again, a $10 million project, typically we would only be able to spend $8 million of Protect. If we use toll credits, we could use $10 million of Protect, and using more money there helps us in August redistribution. The key to August redistribution is having apportionments and projects ready to go with them. So having projects ready to go in every pot of funding is really key to helping us be more successful. So if we're able to concentrate our funding on fewer projects, we can actually increase our ask for August redistribution each year. So right now, we're still a little bit early on in this process. We've been working with our federal partners on calculating the exact amount of toll credits we have earned and the process and the best way to utilize them in our state. So that was fast and furious on toll credits. Thank y'all for your time, and turn it back over to you, Chair Lathrop.
Questions for Lee? Thank you. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Very useful. Thank you very much, Lee. That concludes our agenda.